Hi guys, welcome back to the Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Steve Hall, and on the other end is Magic Mike Challis. How's it going, Mike?
It's going great. And the listeners will probably have seen that I've had a bit of a haircut since our episode last week. So sorry, I actually got some really nice comments that they liked my hair long, but after having it cut, I definitely prefer having it short now. So
You
yeah.
feel a bit fresher.
Yeah, and it's nice not, I don't know, it was literally a weight on my mind. And it was just like there, and it's amazing just how just that extra time of needing to get it relatively presentable and stuff, it's just like there, whereas now it's just like, yeah, bit of freedom.
I'm always surprised. I shouldn't say that. I was always surprised by how good I felt after getting my haircut. I'm like, oh, I'll put it off because, I don't know, it just always felt like an unnecessary expense to some degree. Obviously, it's not because, like, you are your product in some senses when you're front facing, especially for you, Mike. You're one-on-one with people all the time. But like I'm posting on social media and I'm talking to clients and all of this. And so I need to present a certain level of professionalism. And I think keeping care of your like hygiene is part of that is important. But yeah, I'd always delay it as much as possible. But once I got it, I always felt better for having done it. And I'm like, I shouldn't delay it as long as I normally do.
Yeah. I also, more and more, I'm treating it as a bit of self-care to myself, because particularly for the barbers that I go to, they do like they give you as part of the service, like, because I'll often ask for them to trim my beard and stuff, because why not whilst you're there? And they'll put a hot towel on your face, and then as they're shaving you, you've got like a hot mist going into your face, and it's like, do you know what, this is just so relaxing. And like, so for me it's like, hey, this is just a bit of self-care for yourself, Mike.
It's funny you're saying, it's like me saying side tangent. Self-care for yourself. That's what self-care is. You don't have to say
Whoops.
self-care for yourself. Who else is the self? Anyway, regardless, it's just me. It's like, yeah, well, I always find it funny when people pick at my language that I use. I'm just like, oh yeah, why do I do that? It's strange. Anyway, I agree with you though. Not to say that oh, by the way, Mike, am I on full blast on your headphones?
Yes.
Just because I
Is
can
there an
hear,
echo?
yeah, there's feedback,
Oh,
just to see if we can get rid of that. Although with Riverside, I think it actually has this, and I've been using it. I don't know if I use it every time. You can mute the other person whilst you're speaking, which should remove that completely. So yeah, it shouldn't be a problem. Anyway, I just could hear myself back, and I was like, let's see if we can make the audio quality a bit better for the listeners. But anyway, regardless, final thing on your hair. I don't know if I'm right, but I think the commenters who liked your hair were also female versus male. Don't know if that has anything to do with it, but you have very thick, luscious hair. And I just think that's like women care about that more than guys generally. And I used to be like that. And then it started just receding on me. At the back, it's kind of thick, actually, but everywhere else, not so much. Are those some grey hairs as well? I can see at the top there. Or is that just me? Is that playing
you are
tricks on me?
correct. That
You
is
are getting
grey
a few
hairs.
greys.
There you go. Do you know what? You're the first person that's ever noticed it, because I notice it and I'll say to people I've got grey hairs and they'll go, no, no. And I'm like, they're there, I promise you. So there you go. Evidence.
I have no idea how many I have anymore. There was a few creeping in, but they'll come in like on the sides here and I don't know, here and there. But yeah, now I have no idea. Actually, funny enough, on that topic, just very briefly, Menno did a video I saw. He's got like an Menno Apex Living YouTube channel. People might have seen it. I've watched a few of those videos, and I was just interested because he did a video on like balding, and he was like, watch this if you're balding or something like that. And he was just going over basically the too long didn't watch it is like embrace going bald, because although there is research showing that females find you less attractive, there's a bunch of research that also shows that you're like seen as more domineering, more confident, more likely to run like a high level business and all of this. So I think it is, and his kind of take home was like embrace just like going bald, even if you do all the finasteride, minoxidil, you do the hair transplant, eventually it's gonna go, so maybe just embrace it sooner rather than later. The other thing is, it's funny now, I'm bald, I do notice it way more on guys who I can see that they're like holding on to it, and I just sometimes wish I could say like, just let it go,
Yeah.
because this is something he said in the video when I don't know if this is research, but he was like, when it's seen that someone is like trying to hide it versus through like a comb over or whatever, like I was doing, like I was trying to get haircuts that would like help hide it, it comes across as less confident, and actually you'd probably do better off just like kind of getting rid of that. But anyway, I won't turn this into a hair podcast.
Do you know what? It actually has so many applications to a lot of other things, because I think and the message that I think has, that you can sort of translate to other areas is not fighting it, because it's like with aging, like, hey, aging's going to happen. And the people who, get Botox or plastic surgery or whatever to try and just fight aging, sure, maybe it works once, but then after a while you can just tell like they don't look right, it doesn't look natural, it doesn't look quite as good, and you're like, oh, just let it go, just embrace aging gracefully or whatever. And I think there's definitely something to not fighting it, just accepting and letting it happen and owning it, really.
Yeah, the term that comes to mind is age gracefully. With that in mind, though, I do think like what we're doing and a lot of the listeners will be doing, taking care of their sleep, their training, their hydration, quality nutrition, like we are helping that aging gracefully. We're not fighting aging in a sense. And in some ways I am, like, I'm like, hey, yeah, my bone mineral density is going to be way higher because I weight train and everything like that. And I do things like keep a relatively high step count that might not be necessary for the best body composition outcomes and to be the best bodybuilder, but to be my healthiest, best self, I know it is. You could even argue like micronutrients. Long term, I think they probably matter for body comp. Short term, they certainly don't really. But yeah, I think there's some things you can and make sense to do. And then, yeah, other things, for some people, it might make sense. But again, it's interesting, even just thinking about like the hair transplant thing. Yeah, eventually, you're not going to have like, unless you do, I don't know, you have to look at, they haven't been around that long, but apparently someone like a David Beckham has had like tons of hair transplants. So, and you never know where science is going to go, but yeah, I'm kind of in that, let people do what they want, but also if you're doing it out of like a huge insecurity and like for hair, for example, just shave it off, see how you feel about it, and then you can take it from there. I like to say, like, if, I don't know, if someone wants to get Botox here or there and it makes them feel way better, I'm like, hey, good for you, what have you. It just kind of depends where it's coming from. It's sort of similar to translate this to some discussions that I've had with clients this week that's a bit more applicable to this podcast is nutrition and nutrition, adherence, and kind of restriction. And I think you can look at one situation and it could be looked at as overly restrictive and not necessary in one scenario, and in another very productive. So I'm just going to use a client scenario where they were out at a festival and then they came back to someone else's house to sleep at, and everyone else had takeaway pizza. They had prepared their own food to come back to, so they didn't need to indulge in the takeaway pizza. They could be more adherent to the dietary requirements that we have. Obviously, we're flexible in terms of our dietary approach, so we can use methods like calorie banking or averaging out calories across the week and not worrying so much about carbohydrate and fat intakes and just prioritizing protein, what have you, and allocating kind of calories for that meal to make it work within the overall plan. But regardless, that's not what they wanted to do, and they felt really good about having their food there and available, and they felt better about that. Actually, it wasn't a stressor and it didn't take away from the moment. If anything, it just made everything less stressful, more smooth in a sense. But there could be someone else who was like, man, I really felt like I missed out on that takeaway, and they were kind of bringing food because they felt very stressed for not adhering to their diet, and they were restricting themselves unnecessarily. So it's so funny how like different situations, depending on the context and the circumstances, can change how you might interpret it and coach someone through it. Hopefully that made sense.
And do you know what? It's such a funny coincidence, because I had almost the same scenario today with one of my clients, and I don't know if this resonates. Tell me if this doesn't apply. But as you were speaking there, I was thinking almost a good question to always ask yourself is, do you look back and have any regrets? Because if you were to look back and have no regrets, it probably says, hey, I made the right decision that was in line with my values. So if it was like, hey, do you know what? I ate the pizza, but I look back and I have absolutely no regrets because I enjoyed the pizza. It allowed me to be social and be present with my friends. It's like, hey, right decision. You know, in contrast, if you brought your own food, but actually you still enjoyed the party, and actually it was food that, hey, it kept you in line with your goals, you enjoyed it, etc. Like, hey, and you look back and have no regrets, again, right decision. So I think sometimes if you've got that and you've got no regrets, that's a good way of assessing things, would you say?
No, absolutely. I think that's almost the best way, because you don't always know. You might decide in that situation to risk it. You'd be like, actually, I'm not going to bring my own food. I'm going to freeball it, see how it goes. And then you might look back and be like, it just wasn't worth it. I was more stressed and anxious, and it just was frustrating that I didn't have my food with me, and it wasn't even that good. So yeah, I think looking back in hindsight is a great way to assess kind of the situation. Sometimes you have to go through it to learn. So yeah, I think that's yeah, a great one. Is there anything up with you this week, Mike?
No. So last, uh, yeah, it was Saturday. So basically, last Friday, everything got completed with my house. So it all happened at the last minute. So it was like all frantic on Friday and stuff. But
Typical.
then all got completed. I picked up the keys to my new house on Saturday. But I'd already got the Airbnb booked for the rest of the week. So because we had the Revive meetup and the seminar, and I just wouldn't, it would have been really stressful to have tried to moved everything and rush stuff. So I just thought, right, do you know what? I've got that there. I'm going to just hold it and then, you know, gradually kind of move in over the course of this week and this weekend. So I'm going to be moving in properly this coming Saturday. So literally this time next week after this episode, I'll be in the new digs. So it'll be exciting.
That's awesome. How many rooms is it out of interest?
Just two.
Just two.
So
No,
it's got
like
a,
two bedrooms, or is it just two rooms? There must be more than two rooms, surely.
yeah. So there's a downstairs bathroom, upstairs toilet bathroom, and then two bedrooms.
Nice. Have you got like a lounge,
Yeah.
kitchen, and then is that it? Lounge, kitchen, two bedrooms, two toilets, or is there any other
Yes.
spaces? Okay.
Yeah. So you walk in through the front door and you've got a downstairs toilet similar to the one that you've got. And then you kind of walk into the living room, which then walks through to the kitchen, and you've got the garden. Then you'd go upstairs, you've got the bathroom, and then two bedrooms, like a guest bedroom, which is also going to be my little office study area. And then you've got my bedroom, which I'm also excited about because it's got like a walk-in wardrobe type. Well, it's not a walk-in wardrobe, but it's like a big wardrobe with full-length mirrors. And as a bodybuilder, the first thing that went through my head is posing. I get to like see myself full on. So yeah, I was excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the reason I was asking is mostly for whether or not you had a space to like have as like a bit of a home office. So if you've got that spare bedroom, perfect. Because that it's so nice. Like when we moved here and I had this room to be my office, it's just so nice to have like a dedicated space. Obviously, you don't work full time from home, so it's not as big a deal. But it's just nice to be able to make it your own. And I know for you, even like the rest of the house, like I know you mentioned you're looking to invest in like a Ninja Creamy because you'll have the space for it and you can do that. And there can be lots of things like that. You can start investing more time and if you like, or purchase certain things or what have you. It's just nice to have almost some roots in a way. And I think you're probably similar to me in that you quite like having roots down versus kind of being free to move everywhere. It's like, oh, I prefer just to have like a central hub.
Definitely. I'm such a, in a good and a bad sense, a creature of habit. And like you said, just to have those roots where you feel settled, you've got a base. Yeah, no, totally. And it'll be something that I've never done ever is, you know, like invested in something in terms of, you know, buying photos or, you know, painting something, because I've always viewed it as, well, I'm renting it and I'm probably going to be moving soon. So there's no point in me investing in it. And I'm quite indifferent to that sort of stuff sometimes anyway. But now it'll be like, no, hey, Mike, buy that picture. If you wake up and you look at it and it motivates you and makes you feel good, it's like, do it. This is yours now. So that'll be something different for me to do, and to, yeah, experience.
One that comes to mind for me is like plants and like flowers. I don't really get them. Like I'm like, what? Like, like even birthday cards, I'm like, But when I receive birthday cards from people, I'm like, oh, that's nice. And when I see flowers around the house or plants, I'm like, oh, it does feel like I kind of feel the benefit of that. So I think sometimes it's similar with artwork. Like I've got the artwork behind me. I don't know if it can be seen, but people will know. And it's like I know the artists. It means something, and I don't look at it every day and like, oh, this amazing artwork. I very rarely like do that, but it just kind of, I don't know. I can't think of an analogy. I wish I could, but it kind of just complements everything. So yeah, it's those, like you said, you've never purchased such things, you never really spent time on it, but when you do, it kind of opens up a bit of a world of like an appreciation for why people enjoy it. You have to think, if there's so many people that enjoy like art or I don't know, gardening or whatever it is, there's got to be something to it, right? It might not be for you, but similar to that, hindsight, like do you regret it? Like see if it does, and then you can go from there.
Definitely. And I think even though we might not consciously acknowledge or be aware of it, I think subconsciously it still is having an effect. Kind of like, if you're walking outside, you could walk on a treadmill, or you could walk outside or be involved in nature. And even though you might walk outside all the time, there's still something inherently probably better that's making you feel a bit better, hopefully, about walking outside compared to walking on a treadmill inside.
I have a thought, because I know you do buy aftershave, and you might even be more into that than me. Like it's something that I'm always like, what, like why? But I do appreciate it when I walk past or someone walks past me and they smell good. I'm like, oh yeah, nice. And then like it's nice for someone to say, oh, I like your scent or whatever it is. Like I like the smell there, and I'm like, oh yeah. I kind of always just wore it for special occasions, to the point where it would start not smelling because I'd have like the hot like 75% of the bottle left, but it'd been like 5-10 years that I'd been kind of just milking it out. But yeah, you're more into the aftershave stuff than I am, I think.
I don't know what it is. I'm just big on smells. Like, I just like things to smell nice, like rooms, like even in this room, like I have a spare can of like air freshener, because I'm just, sometimes you can walk into a room, particularly if you've had two people in close proximity, it just gets stuffy. And I don't like the idea of someone walking into a room and it just smells like, a PE changing room of 7-year-olds or something like that. So,
Uh,
but yeah, I'm big on smells.
Yeah, it's funny how people are different like that. I'm partly, I think my excuse at least is my smell is pretty poor compared to your average person, related to my head injury. I always know if I can smell a fart, it's bad, because I very often can't smell farts or gas, for
Yeah.
example, which could be troublesome. But yeah, that's a whole different story. My smell is just not great. But yeah, so let's talk about the weekend, right?
Yeah, let's definitely talk about the weekend, because it was awesome.
So it's very exciting, and I'm glad actually it'll be probably a bit less stressful for you to be able to have a time to transition and move your stuff into your place, and kind of ideal that you don't have too much stuff to have to move, because that makes it a whole lot worse. I'll be honest, we have so much stuff that we had to move when we moved here. But yeah, with the weekend. So for the listeners, if you weren't aware, we had our kind of first. I say first because we've not really ever done like a Revive Stronger seminar educational event. We've done kind of seminars and educational events with other educators that have come over, such as Renaissance Periodization, which has always been fantastic. I've presented at those previously and been part of that. And we've done training days where it's just like, hey, our clients, let's get together, or people that are kind of close to the brand, let's get together and have fun and train and talk. But we wanted to like do that, but with some educational pieces. And so we're at the Cut Gym, which is an awesome little gym in central London, and we have it all to ourselves. So we took people through training, and because there's like just under 10 of us together, we could really be hands on with everyone, which is great. And from talking to people, a lot of it is just being able to train in a environment where everyone is like very similar and thinks similarly, and it's nice to network and make friends in that sense. but be able to push people hard, check their technique and form, make sure that's in a good place, and test them. Basically, that's what I was going for, like with people who wanted to be tested. Some people were forming their own programs, of course. And then we had lunch, and then we came back for just a bit of because typically when I've presented at these kind of events, it's been like a huge crowd of like 100 people or something, but this was way more tight knit. As we were presenting, people could ask questions, and in fact we went overtime and easily could have gone way over time. We learned a lot in terms of how we'd structure it and prioritize a bit more time to the presentations there, and they were a lot of fun, and we got some great questions, really good feedback, and then went out for burgers afterwards. Actually worked really, really well. We had like a whole restaurant to ourselves and got some burgers, and actually ended up hanging out there for like 4 hours afterwards. So
No.
super chill. It was a lot of fun. And it does make me think that I'd quite like to keep these, what's it called? Just small. I was trying to think of a better word for small, but quite a tight knit environment I think would be great. So I can't imagine doing much more than 15, 20 people at one time. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, wasn't it, Mike? I don't know if you have any immediate thoughts that come out about the weekend. I just kind of framed it.
Yeah, it's funny because you gave me you reminded me of the London seminar when Jared and Mike and Charlie came over to present, and that was quite vivid in my mind because I just remember that all of you guys had just people queuing up to talk to you. And whilst it was cool in some senses, not everybody got a chance to talk to you because the people who were talking were conscious that they couldn't take too long because other people were waiting. Other people were waiting, and there just isn't a chance to be kind of intimate or, have just a casual conversation. There's always an element of formality and time pressure, whereas we just didn't have that at this meetup. Everyone could be relaxed, could be themselves. We could have a casual conversation, just like kind of, two friends kind of meeting up. And I just think that, yeah, people appreciate that so much. And it was the same, I think, with the presentations where we didn't necessarily formally structure it in the sense of, oh, hold your questions till the end or whatever. It just organically seemed to, like, when people were curious, they'd ask a question and it kind of fitted in really well with what we were giving. So it just all, I think because of those small numbers, it just all organically happened really smoothly. So, and we said it last week as well, where just those informal conversations is just what's so nice about these events. So yeah, I would just, echo those thoughts.
You're so right. You could dive into questions and topics and discussions and just flush them out to such a large degree where, like you said, when someone was trying to say hello at one of these events, it might just be like a hi, shake the hand, get a photo, and then just like wander off. Whereas actually you've got like, I don't know, 5, 10 questions, and each of those you could go in more depth. But the people that came basically had from 10 a.m. all the way to 7 p.m. with us kind of one-on-one. We're chatting the entire time. But it never felt intense or full on because, again, it's a nice tight knit group. So I actually really enjoy these. And again, if we have lesser numbers, but we run them more frequently, I think it could be a really cool thing. And I think we maybe touched on it a little bit last week where we talked about AI, but it's something I personally would like to lean into a little bit more and that's always something we've been very conscious with our coaching style, is to make sure that it's very personable. I always thought one of the greatest benefits of personal training was actually having that one-on-one person interaction and having someone that cares about you, taking you through a workout and being able to ask questions that are very specific to you, your scenario. It's actually to some extent like self-care. Again, I think even having an online coach that is truly coaching you, listening to your thoughts, concerns, worries, whatever they might be, the wins, and being able to like have a conversation with them is so important. So yeah, I very much felt that at this event. And yeah, I just look forward to potentially doing future ones. Again, some of the lessons, at least from my end, was definitely probably don't need as much time banked for training. Could probably get that done in a shorter period of time. And then also structuring training a bit more. So maybe having like a set lower body group, upper body group, and actually having like a program they follow together. And they obviously can vary it a little bit in terms of if they want to miss some bits and they want to do a bit more volume here or there. But just so we're like very hands-on with everyone in those groups. And I think if you do it that way, you can do more people. Whereas if everyone's just across the gym, it's like, can't really work with them that closely. and then just having a bit more time to present and have like a good chunk of like Q&A as well, because I think that could have, obviously people asked questions during our presentations, but I think they probably had a lot of non-specific questions too, which was fine because we went out for food and then we had hours for them to be able to ask. But if we had more people, or if they weren't coming to dinner afterwards, then that might not have been there. So I'm looking forward to, people might have seen the reel that was like a highlight reel from the day, where I loved what Stephen did there, our videographer. He did a great job of like capturing the vibe and what we're trying to going for with those. Me and Mike are both like super friendly, very like hopefully you feel really comfortable to come and chat to us. It's very much that vibe, and everyone there is just like, there's no silly questions, everyone's just trying to big each other up and help one another. It's such a positive environment. So I think if you ever feel like, hey, you don't have people in your close-knit network that are similar to you and have similar thoughts and philosophies surrounding training, coming to this is just like, you'll just light a fire in your ass for months upon months leading forward. So it was very good fun.
Totally. And I would like add to that, it feels very inclusive, because I think if I was to look at everybody who came, like it was a really broad mix of people, like not just from different parts of, abroad, internationally, but also like the UK as well. Like if you were to just look at them, it's like a really diverse group of individuals. And I would like to think that because of, us being really approachable and friendly, it means that anyone from any background can come. And I hope that, people who listen do feel that even if maybe you don't have to be a competitive bodybuilder. You can literally be anything that you want to be. You're just passionate about listening to us and being part of the community. It's like, hey, that's enough. Come along, So I think that's what it felt like to me as well.
No, absolutely. It's so true. We had Haj, competitive natural bodybuilder, classic competitor. We had Andrew, who's a men's physique competitor, with my other client, Matt, who's just just a recreational bodybuilder, if we can put it in those terms. I just say he's a bodybuilder, not competitive yet, at least. And then obviously you had your clients there as well. And we had Robin, who was just coming off the email list. And then we had Rohin. No way, I'm saying that wrong. Maybe
Rohit.
wrong. Rohit, and he was just, again, someone who follows me over on social media and is a personal trainer himself, very interested in things. So real, like, from people who are fairly new to things to people who are like been doing this over a decade and very, very competitive, but everyone just kind of was very like for like in their thoughts and philosophies and gelled really well. So there was no like egos or anything scary there, but it does open up the opportunity to do, like, we could go in depth on like an exercise in the gym if we needed to, or go in depth on posing. We could do a posing clinic if there was interest in that. Very open to whatever. Like if people are listening and they're like, oh, I'd really love you to do this, reach out to us, let us know, because we can make these sort of things happen for sure if people are interested, if there's demand there.
Yeah, we're just both so passionate, and I think when you bring like-minded individuals together, that passion just grows and it just fires you up, and it's awesome. And it was, do you know what I also really liked? I really liked your presentation because it was so practical, and I think that just opened out, room for questions. And again, like, I think mine was kind of relevant as well. Like it was relatively practical, kind of like based it on around pain and stuff. So, I just thought it worked out really well.
Yeah, I think what we did this time with our presentations was really equipping the people who came of how to think like a coach with an understanding of also pain, or even thinking about how, like, actually they just basically got an insight into our brains. Like the most specific thing to you, Mike, is like dealing with pain as a bodybuilder, and that's essentially, you just gave people a skill set of how to go about that for themselves or clients. And very similar for me, it was a case of like, how do I look at things as a coach? Because it's all good and well what a textbook might say, but how do you actually, life doesn't always go like a textbook does. So it was really giving people that extra bit of education that you wouldn't pick up in, like, you can't pick up that sort of education in, I don't know, any like PhD, a textbook. Like this is things where it's very individual to the scenario that you're in. So yeah, I think both presentations, I was really pleased with how it went with the presentations that we had there. And yeah, we can cover so many different things, especially when it's a small group. Like it's just easy if people are like, oh, I'm not interested in this, I've got all these questions about X, and if everyone's like, yeah, do that, and then it's like, oh great, like let's go that way. Similar to this like Q&A format with the podcast, but people are there live and can ask even more. So yeah, it'll be good fun. And then yeah, I don't know why I feel like I need to mention this. I don't need to mention it. But if anyone gets an opportunity to go to, where did we even go? Because it wasn't Honest Burger, but it was like a patty and I can't smash and grab. It was called, but it's like a, I don't know, like a thread off Honest Burgers, which is one of my favorite burger places in London anyway. And yeah, I was very, very pleased with my burger. You weren't as satisfied with yours. To come back to our scoring out of 10, you mentioned a 6 out of 10, which if Mike's giving me a 6 out of 10, it really can't be that good. But mine was literally a 9 out of 10. Like I'm almost worried to ever get that again because it was so good. It was a barbecue chicken burger, which sounds not as good as what it was. It was just, I had never had anything I think that's the best burger I've ever had in my life, quite honestly. I don't know if I was just stupidly hungry, Mike, because we hadn't eaten that much and it had been a while.
That's legit. If best burger of your life, I didn't realize it was on that level of a 9 out of 10.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't give 9s out of 10 easy. That was definitely...
I know. You're a hard person to please compared to me when it comes to rating food.
But a 6 out of 10, that's why I was like, oh gosh, I'm so glad I didn't get that burger.
I know. I was kind of, it wasn't bad, but it was just average, I would have said. And I was definitely jealous after hearing what your chicken burger was like. So, but I didn't think about it too much, I must admit. I kind of just like looked, smash burger, barbecue, yep, fine. So I feel like now I should have just invested a bit more time into looking at things a bit more properly.
Yeah, I don't know why. I've never been into those. I haven't had one, to be fair, smash burger. Was that your first smash burger, or have you had those before?
No, I've not had them before.
Yeah. So how did you like it versus a normal burger?
Prefer a normal burger. It just,
So
there
for those
wasn't...
that don't know, the smash ones, they basically, it's a normal burger, but they smush it down. So it's really flat. But in my eyes, I'm like, well, you're just changing the shape of it. And then you're actually getting lots of the juices out of it. I don't know if like it was a bit drier than like a normal burger, but I don't know.
It wasn't as kind of filling and satiating, I would have said. There was no bite to it. It just felt like you were eating mincemeat between two buns.
That is actually what that's a lot of like I think that's similar to what am I trying to think? Oh yeah, so there's somewhere called Halo Burger, which is basically a chain that is like a vegan chain that's similar to McDonald's, and they do like a Big Mac version that it's vegan, and I don't enjoy those burgers at all because it is just like there's no textures or bite to it. Charlotte quite likes it, and I'm just like, I'm just like, if you go there, I'm having someone else. I'm not eating that burger because it's just feels like it just disintegrates into nothing in my mouth. I don't know if that's what McDonald's burgers are generally like because I haven't really had anything but the McPlant, which isn't like that. It's actually decent, but I digress.
No, I actually think for me at least, texture is really important when it comes to food, because I think sometimes, like when we talk about, croats or protein oats, that contrast of textures and texture is just so, for me at least, it's key. It's really important.
I think texture might be more important than how it tastes to me, or equally as important. I'm not sure. But yeah, Charlotte always laughs at me because I talk about contrasting textures all the time and colors sometimes.
But equally, I tell you what is really low down there for me in terms of food, and that's presentation. I really don't care how it's presented. It's more texture, taste, how it's presented. Like, that's quite low down for me, I would say.
Yeah, I don't take care of my presentation. I do appreciate when I see it. Like if I see an acai bowl, acai bowls, like they always look to me really appealing. It's like acai smoothie at the bottom, and then it's like granola on top, and it has like sliced bananas. You'd probably know if I showed you. I might be pronouncing it funny to what you expect it to be called. I think it is acai. I always want to say acai. It's like purple, like smoothie type of
okay. I get
texture.
a picture for what you're trying to say.
But anyway, it doesn't matter. They always look amazing, or like you various foods, and I imagine they might end up just being disappointing when you go to eat them.
Mm. But because I kind of think the same, like when you go to like a Michelin star restaurant, I haven't been to many, so bear with me, but sometimes you see all these tiny little meals and they're like little like this, and it's like, yeah, they look pretty, and maybe they taste okay, but I just want a big steak or something like that. It's like, I don't care about all this fancy schmancy little things. I just want a big steak.
This sounds like someone who hasn't been to many Michelin star restaurants.
Yeah.
Only
This
because
is Monk
not to say that
Mike.
I have, but when I go to some restaurants where they're expensive and they have like little portions, the taste and textures that they can do, because they're just that good, are just like overwhelmingly like, wow. Like I want more of that, but there's like 6 other little dishes coming and I'm interested to try them all. Not that I've done it very often, but when I have, I always appreciate it.
Is kind of feeling, not that there should be, but like after you've had a meal, you want to feel like, hey, I feel kind of, that I've had a meal, a bit satiated and stuff like that. Did you feel like that after the whole thing?
I honestly can't remember. Probably. There's no normally when I can't even think of a specific event, or if I'm thinking of a specific event, I'm thinking of the Heron Tower. There's duck and waffle, and quite often it's not. I don't think it's Michelin star by any means. It's really cool though. It's like really high up in the Heron Tower. It's near the Gherkin, if you know the Gherkin,
Mm.
or like around that area near London Bridge, and you get great views. But anyway, the food's really good. But the main courses, some of the courses are smaller, but and they look very fancy, but the taste and the textures they give are just like crazy. But normally it's quite a lot of what I'm saying is it's quite a lot of like starter, main, dessert, sides. Like it's normally quite a bit of food. So yes, inevitably you do feel satiated. But if you were being a scrimp and just getting like one starter, you're probably going to be disappointed.
Yeah. To be fair, I have I probably haven't been to a Michelin star restaurant, so I probably can't knock it until I've actually been to one. So yeah, fair dues.
This makes me think of something you said last week where you're like, oh, I'm not, festivals. You're like, oh, I'm not into festivals. So you've never been to one, Mike. How do you know? Uh, but I'm going to ask you the first question, then I'm going to go pee because I'm sat here and I'm like, I need to pee in typical fashion. So the first question, or it was actually a question from last week we didn't get to, was from, and for those who aren't aware just yet, Instagram, Hypertrophic Time Chamber. I'll put the link in the description so you can join it. That's where you can ask questions. I ask for questions every week. So it was from or A Smith 565 asks, how do you set up an exercise program for athletes in different bodybuilding categories, both females and males? Basically, yeah. How do you set up anything different? I'll
How
be
do I
back.
set things differently? So I think firstly, I would go by the criteria for that class. So, what are the most important things in that class, essentially? Then I would look to the athlete in front of me, and you're doing essentially a bit of a SWOT analysis of that athlete. What are their strengths? Is it in line with the criteria that we're aiming for? I think there's always that conversation that you've got to have with someone about, if is that the category that they really want to go for? Because maybe their structure and physique might suit a slightly different category or class. So I think that's always a discussion that's worth having. But again, you're going by the criteria of that class. You're assessing the athlete, assessing for the weak points, what might need to be brought up. And then you're using that. So say, for example, maybe it's a bikini class and that, right, glutes are going to have to, feature quite prominently in the program. So you're going to want to have that in there. That maybe things like calves and biceps are probably not going to be as important for a bikini competitor. So we probably don't need to worry about that as much. So you're using the main things that you need to work on to feature heavily in the program and then kind of backtracking from there. So that's kind of how I would start going about it.
Yeah, I think it's as you described there so well. It doesn't really matter. Like, I mean, what I'm trying to say is you would do exactly as you would do if a client was coming to you and they had certain goals in front of them, i.e., they might not care about legs. That makes them very similar to a men's physique competitor. However, a men's physique competitor, you might prioritize upper body, but they might still want to develop legs. And so you might still have those in there almost just as prominently. So you have to take that into consideration too. But also, like you said, maybe they want to eventually move into men's bodybuilding and they're just doing men's physique whilst they're kind of trying to grow fully, and they're more competitive right now in men's physique, similarly to bikini. Maybe they want to move into figure eventually. So you're like, hey, actually, we just need to grow everywhere. Bodybuilders are the simplest because you just have to grow everything. But obviously, like you said, I've never heard a SWOT analysis being used in that scenario, but it makes exact sense. Like, look at their strengths, weaknesses, and then make adjustments according to that. And the things you would do once you've looked at kind of strengths, weaknesses, areas that we want to bring up, the first thing I would always look at before anything is like make sure their execution is on point. They're selecting exercises that train those muscles really well. Make sure their intensity is on point. Like, get all those basics in check. Then you can start thinking about structuring. Maybe you want to put a bit more volume towards those muscles and therefore maybe have slightly higher frequencies there. Maybe we want to put some other things on the back burner. We want to train them earlier within workouts, earlier within the week, these sort of things. And basically, you just want to make sure that the areas that you're trying to grow the best are getting as much volume as they can to recover from and being prioritized in that manner. And you're not doing things that can take away from that, but also they're being trained and given opportunities to produce the highest quality volume possible, i.e., earlier in the week, earlier within sessions, and splitting up the frequency according to the amount of volume they've got to get done. Higher frequencies if they have more volume there. But yeah, there's no inherent differences for anyone who comes to us and has like specific needs or goals. You'd approach it the same way. Don't know
Yeah,
if you have
and
anything to add.
just the final thought of it obviously is also context dependent, because probably all of these things are going off a previous question where you want to have at least probably 3 to 5 years of good training, of maybe developing everything first potentially, because then how do you know how do you know a particular body part that you need to bring up is a weakness necessarily if if you've only just started bodybuilding essentially. So I think there's an element of, if you absolutely know for sure, like, hey, I am a physique athlete and I really don't care about my legs, I don't care about it at all, I know I just need to beef up my upper body, all right, fine. But equally, again, know who you are, know how much experience you've had training properly, like you said, underneath your belt, training body parts properly underneath your belt, before diving a bit deeper maybe into these sorts of things.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, I have clients and I just have to be real with them, because when they're talking about, oh, should I prioritize this? Is this a weakness? I'm just like, dude, just going to be real with you. Everything's weak. We just need to grow everything. You just need a lot of work everywhere. Then once you're like, you've got that foundation, we can start focusing on particular areas. This is if they're a competitive like bodybuilder or they have aspire to be like step on stage. If they're just like, hey Steve, I just want to grow massive wham arms, and they're not looking to step on stage, I'm like, cool, we can make that happen, we can focus on that, that's fine. Or similarly glutes, whatever it might be, we can make that happen. So next question, have you got them
Yeah,
open or shall I ask?
no, I got them.
Cool.
So right, the next question by Bryce Stein. He says, would you ever make a quote how to pose for bodybuilding quote video for the Revive Stronger channel? It'd be useful for clients and interesting to see your take.
This is something we have discussed previously and did want to produce, and it might be something that we do. Yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on kind of
I
I
think
think you'd be interested in doing it.
I mean, I would love to do that. I think the thing is, there's a lot of information out there, and I think sometimes, yeah, there's a lot of posing information out there now, I would say, and I get where this question is coming from as well, just to get our take and opinion on things. So it might be that, hey, maybe we don't do a tutorial as such. Maybe it's just, I don't know, we just give our perspectives on things. But I definitely think we're open to it. But yeah, there's also a lot of information out there. It's probably not on the high top priority list for us at the moment. But if we get more people interested, then I definitely think we'd do it.
Yeah, it's something I thought about just doing like a voiceover of my posing and what I'm thinking about as I'm doing it. But there's, again, like you said, there's videos out there that go over the basics, and you can only really cover the basics in posing anyway. And the real thing that most people are looking for is that like individual hands-on, like little bits and pieces that you might be able to throw through with someone. But yeah, it's, and for my competitors at least, again, there's resources out there that I can fire their way, and then that's what we dive into. And that's what you dive into when you work with people for posing is, hey, how do I get, actually, this is just something I've been working on with Kieran. He was struggling to contract his glute whilst relaxing his hamstring on a side chest and side tricep. And so I kind of was like, right, the hamstring's turning on because he's pulling backwards, because that's what the hamstring's trying to do, kind of curl the leg up. And that's what he's thinking about when he's contracting the glutes. He's thinking like pushing his hips back. And I was like, hey, rather than thinking about kind of pulling back with your hips, like hip extension, think about hip flexion, like think about pushing them forward and kind of contract them that way, because then you won't want to turn on the hamstring. So like thinking about, yeah, pushing the hips forward. So hopefully that works for him. But these are the little things where for me, I don't know about you, Mike, I've never struggled relaxing my hamstring during the side poses. It just, if I need to relax it, I can. So it's like these little things that you need to break down. And also, I think a lot of people want, I don't know about you, Mike, but I have clients that aren't even necessarily looking to step on stage, but they want like posing advice. It's a bit different posing for like just general photos or for a photo shoot versus like competitive bodybuilding posing. Like you might not want the same poses, and then that I don't even know how, like that could go in so many different, like a lot of the basics would help, but then you want kind of tweaks on those of how to look best in a photo shoot, how to set up for poses and stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting area.
With posing, particularly if you're a competitive athlete, you do have certain boundaries within the criteria for the federation that you want to compete in, because some federations might want you to hit a pose in a particular way. So a thing that always I think about is, say for the UK DFBA, they don't want you to hit a vacuum with certain, like an abdominal pose, or at least that was what it used to be. I don't know if it's changed.
Same with the WNBF. Don't want vacuums.
Okay. Ignore that comment. But anyway, there might be.
No, I don't think I'm just saying it also applies to the WNBF.
So yeah, and it's just about those nuances where, like, whereas if there's someone who's not competitive but they just want to pose, there's literally no limitations to what you can do. So you can just literally pose however you want to. And in that scenario, I think it's just all about experimentation, like you were working with Kieran. It's like, rather than pulling, try pushing forwards, all of those sorts of things. And it's just literally experiment to see what brings the physique out. It's like tweaking. Okay, that didn't work. Let's tweak it this way. It's a lot of what we've done with Andrew as well, where kind of like we did this, but then he's found out that twisting his torso that way brings out the lats and the V-taper a bit more. So it's all tweaking and experimentation.
This is the point you basically just made there with Andrew, and I can speak about it with myself. You can learn the basics from someone, but then you learn so much better on your own. Like Andrew taking the time to go through his posing, seeing him in the mirror, seeing himself in the mirror, getting into poses, seeing what helps, what doesn't. That's the best. And that's, as an example for me, my front double bicep. Like I was kind of blown away by how it looked recently. I was like, wow, it's looking tremendous. And that was one of my weakest poses, but I've managed to tweak it so it looks like actually very competitive now. And I'm like, wow, like imagine if I just took, I don't know, a posing video online and just posed the way like anyone can pose that. But for me, my shape, I have to like really get into this tweaked position, which I've been able to find. So I do think, yeah, you kind of have to, everyone's that little bit different, right? So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. And just final point on that, that ties in with your presentation again. That's where the textbook differs from real life. And yeah, great example.
Very true. I didn't have that example in there, but that's a really good one.
Next question. Next time. Yeah, next question.
So we have Crane Hart. I don't know if I say that right, Crane Hart. Christine, right? So she is asking, what advice do you guys have for keeping your competitive calm? yeah, competitors calm and psychologically less stressed, sorry, leading into and on show day. So how do we keep our competitors calm leading into show day?
I think knowing the person first and foremost is really important, knowing what might they be anxious about. But I think an important thing that's always useful in my mind is kind of almost having a tick box and a process. Because if you can just come back to, right, okay, have I got my trunks? Have I got my, sweet, have I got my sugars, etc. Just having like a little process which you can keep coming back to. I think it stops an athlete from getting too caught up in the future and just bring them back to the present moment. So I think there's that element of coming back to the present moment. I think that's also a coach. So I think that's something first and foremost that's really helpful to do with an athlete. I think trying to put their mind also to like, hey, we've done all we can do at this point. You've put in the work. You've done your absolute best. Let's just enjoy the day. And again, keep the focus on the present moment, on enjoyment. I think that's so important because as you experienced this past weekend, Steve, like we can't control certain outcomes. We just can't. But if the competitor can enjoy the day, then I think that's a big win in my mind. And I think all of those things can help to just reduce the negative psychological aspect of stress.
Very well said. Knowing your competitors is hugely important. You made loads of good points. I wonder do you think it's worth, as a tangent, we talk about this weekend a little bit? Because actually we did talk about my guys. And I think of particular because Will Tennessee, is that his name? But Will, who I don't think you follow or know of, particularly.
Sorry.
You've probably seen him. You've seen him, right? Have you seen posts?
You showed me pictures of him. I hadn't seen him before you showed me pictures.
Yeah, so a lot of the listeners will know Will, and so I just thought it might be worth covering some of those things, just because I think it might be interesting for people. And I haven't shared my perspective on it, but there's been like lots of talk around it. Same so with like Sam Sulek, where there was loads of hype around him going pro and did he deserve it and where should he have placed and all of this. Is similar, but in the natural scene. And so what I do want to say is, first of all, I don't think he won or was given his pro card in any association with his social media status. I don't think that played a role in any sense I have no affiliation with him. I have no bias towards him. As a WNBF judge, I would have judged him as first. Whether or not a pro card should have been handed out is, I think, more debatable. I don't know the exact process. From my understanding at the WNBF, but I think it depends on, like in the UK, we're very not willing to give out pro cards. Actually, that sounds really wrong. Let me rephrase that. Don't take that as truth. It's not that we're not willing to give out pro cards, and I can't really speak for it because it's not like I give out the pro card. I am one of the judging panel that might have input into whether someone goes pro. They're very diligent about who they deem as being pro worthy, for not just the sake of keeping WNBF pro as a high standard, but also making sure that that athlete isn't handicapped by being given that pro card. Because you imagine if you're given a pro card and you weren't really like quote unquote pro worthy, now you're going into a harder, it's like playing on hard mode, but you haven't even actually nailed the ability to finish the game on like easy or challenge or whatever, So if someone gets gifted a pro card and they're not ready for that, then they're just going to go into that and really, really struggle. I think I heard someone talk about Brad Loomis. He maybe had this experience where he was given a pro card from 3DMJ many years ago, and then he went into the pro ranks and was just couldn't hang with those guys. So you don't really want to be giving people pro cards when don't have that ability to hang with the pros, and they should be of a standard. So I know the WNBF UK, as an example, are very diligent about making sure that is the case. My personal view is I don't think Will was of a competitive standard of a pro. Like if he was on the world stage, I could almost guarantee he would have come last in his category. Now that's the world stage, it's the most competitive, but he just didn't have that level of condition that I'd expect a pro to bring to stage. His quads were somewhat separated, but like not all that separated, and his hamstrings and glutes again similarly were very soft. His upper body was almost inside out peeled, and a lot of people have spoken about the fact that like he should do men's physique because he's almost built for that. But he has the size on the struggle he will have, and I know he's coached by Cliff, so I'm sure Cliff has eyes on this. He's all over it. The struggle he will have is similar to me in my chest. To get my kind of glutes in, my chest gets lean so soon that my chest can start losing size, and it starts looking not great on stage, and I lose my competitiveness. Other athletes will be able to talk about this, where to bring in certain muscle groups, they almost have to sacrifice other areas, and then you have to make the call if it's worth it. So for Will, to bring his legs in, might have to lose so much size on his upper body that it starts not being worth it, because his legs are actually very, very well developed in comparison to his upper body. And I do think here's the potential to be a very good pro, which is maybe why they gave him the pro card, because they're like, hey, if you did lose X amount of weight, brought those legs through, you would be competitive on a pro stage, which I do think he would be. So I totally I would understand that. But I did just want to give my like just 2 cents on the subject of, first of all, I don't think it was anything related to his social media status or fame, but I don't think he would be competitive as a pro as is, but he has the potential to go there. And there was some videos, there was some big, I can't think what his name is, but he's on the enhanced side. He was basically saying like, this is what you should expect from like natural bodybuilding, is they don't come in the condition that the untested federations do, and that's completely arse backwards. The condition, is the listeners will know, is on natural side is as good, if not better often than on the enhanced side. So yeah, it's just like completely arse backwards. I don't know if you have any thoughts on the whole subject.
No, not really. I guess my thoughts actually went to kind of your clients as well, and how, do you know what, something that really stood out was that even though, because you had Kieran and Jake that both competed, and even though the outcomes for both Kieran and Jake were different, they both had a great time. And that was something which I think's so important, because I think, am I right in thinking both of them, it was their first time competing? So as a first-time competitor, that's what you want. Like, you don't want a competitor to be burnt out and hate bodybuilding and they never compete again. You want them to have a positive experience, regardless of outcome. And so that actually they're hungry to compete again. Yes, they're going to take an improvement season, they're going to grow muscle and take some time away, but they're hungry to go back at some stage. And you know what? For me, that's what I think is so important, and the most important thing more than anything. Yeah, so that kind of stood out for me.
Especially as a first timer, that's always my goal, is to bring them into the best shape possible to stage, but making sure they enjoy the process. It's one thing, like for me, if I hate my season, no, I mean, it sounds a bit extreme, but for someone who's like, they've been doing it years and they are now invested in it, they love it, like they know they're bought in, it's one thing to push them to the point of like a lot of discomfort and almost like a bit like almost where they're like, oh, I didn't love that, but you are willing to push them because you're really competitive at that point. Whereas we just didn't know, as a first timer, you don't really know where you stand. You don't know if you're going to even enjoy it. Whereas if you push someone who's a first timer and they just hate the process because you're so obsessed about getting their glutes in or whatever it is, now suddenly that's no good. So I'm not saying that you can't bring a first timer to stage to be their absolute most competitive self, but I'm always wary to make sure that they are enjoying the process, and to some extent at least, and not hating it, and it's not taking over their life and taking away from their life. I think that always is a underlying thing within natural bodybuilding, particularly because it doesn't pay the bills. So you should always let it kind of, to some extent, on balance, complement your life. But the longer you've been doing it, the more competitive you are, the more you'll be like, yeah, I'm going to push this person a bit more than the other person, if that makes sense. But to speak to both of them, like Kieran, like in the debut lineup, like he looked like an open bodybuilder. Again, some people would say like Will didn't look as lean because of the lighting. Kieran was inside out. Like his quads were fully through, his glutes were fully through. He looked unreal on stage. I was, gutted for him because I don't think his placings were reflective of the physique he brought to stage. But there's nothing we can do about that. You can't control it. But the cool thing is he loved his time on stage and didn't really focus about where he placed. On reflection, after we just checked in. He did look at it and he was a bit gutted about his placings, which I think he's completely right to feel that way, because I am also a bit like upset with some of his placings. But that's like a bias, and hey, I'm not there on the day. I'm not sat in the judges table, but just from what I saw. But the really great thing he did, and this just speaks to his mentality, is he was like, he got over it. He was like, well, it doesn't do anything good to be upset about placings and to be disgruntled about it. The kind of maturity of him as like a first timer to be able to do that and then use it for fuel to get better in future is amazing. And then same with Jake. He came first. So people know, Kieran came, I had a post on it. So he came third in debut, which to be honest, I really do think he deserved first place there. Fifth in open, and he came fourth in classic. And he got some unfavorable outcomes. He was tall for classic. He's not that tall. I think he's actually shorter than me. I think he's like 5'9" or something. And then in open, he was in the middleweights. Again, he was on the cusp of being a lightweight. He was basically in there by like a pound. So yeah, some unfavorable aspects there, but you can't control them. We didn't know the weight caps beforehand. It's just how it comes out on the day. And then Jake, I don't know if it's debut or novice. I always get those the same thing to me. But debut, I think he came first, and then open, he came second. And actually, I think he did debut and novice. I don't know exactly what the difference was, but he won 2 categories and came second in open. So it was like one placing off a pro card. And the great thing that Jake had, and he has maturity beyond his years as well, like Kieran, is like he was fine with, I was so glad he came back with this, but he was like, I didn't deserve my pro card. I don't want it yet, because he knows that would handicap him in future. Because I was like, yeah, and I was like, dude, you're so right. I didn't want you to win your pro card. Second place is the best position we could have hoped for, because that will drive you, make you hungry for future. And I want you to go and win a bunch of amateur titles. Like, go do that and see how you fare. So yeah, it was a fantastic experience for both of those. And I don't know if you want to jump in before I can move on to the actual question, because I know I completely led us down a tangent.
No, but yeah, I think actually, for the sake of questions, why don't you go back into answering the question?
Cool. So, advice to get for my guys to keep them calm and less psychologically stressed leading into and on show day. So, first of all, is when I start with them, setting up a timeline so we know where we need to be. What that does is it gives them kind of foresight of where they are now and where they need to be, so they're not questioning or doubting whether or not they're ready. But also, as we go through, giving them confidence that we're on track, and I would be making adjustments necessary to get them on track if we were off track, basically so that they trust me wholeheartedly, and so they don't have to stress about, oh, should I be dropping calories, should I be adding cardio? It's like, no, Steve has my back 100%. I trust in him. So getting your clients to buy into you as their coach, their mentor, their guide is super important. So I'm just like developing that from the consultation. I'm developing that hopefully here right now to anyone who might future come to Revive Stronger. We've got your back. We're going to fucking nail this. Don't worry about it. And then it's making sure that whatever you're doing with your weekly check-ins up into leading into shows, they're ready. So they are ready. And then that reduces a ton of stress, because if you're behind schedule, you're screwed. And that's going to cause a lot of stress. So you have a plan from the get-go. But then as you get nearer, not the week of, probably not even 2 weeks out, maybe 2 weeks out, but at least 2 weeks, but maybe more than that, already walk them through peak week and how that might look. So they've already got a bit of an understanding of what to expect and what you're going to require from them in terms of like feedback and communication and adjustments to their diet. So there isn't just this overwhelming sense of like last minute, it all gets thrown at you and you're like, oh shit, I have to adjust this. I can't do that, Steve. I'm busy, I'm working, or whatever. Throw it up ahead of time so they can already have questions and you can cover those. And so there isn't just like this load chucked on you immediately. So planning ahead of time, so important. But also knowing that, hey, we have this peak week plan, but it's going to be auto-regulated. We're going to adjust and be ready for that. So I set them up with that too, where I'm like, hey, if you're like, your show is away and you're getting there early, make sure you're not just planning food and making a meal plan for like the peak week plan that's in there, and then you're like, I have no adjustability to this. If I need you to put out carbs, put in carbs, fats, whatever it might be, protein, have those available or know somewhere you can get them from. And then again, training's covered, salt fluid, all of those things are covered. So that really low stress, like they know exactly what they need to execute. So they're ready, first of all, they know the plan leading into it and the adjustments that I require from them, the communication there, and be open and ready to communicate too. So if they send you a message on WhatsApp, you're not the next day getting back to them, depending on when they send it, of course. But if they message you in the morning, you're getting back to them within hours. And even if sometimes like I'm in the gym and I can't look at it, I will say, hey, just so you know, I've seen this. I'm going to get back to you in approximately half an hour when I'm at home. And they're just like, cool, totally fine. But if you like, I just always take every opportunity I can to kind of calm any nerves, to be there ready for any questions that might come to me and give them opportunity to. Again, any questions, no silly questions. That really, really helps. And then on show day, again, we've already got the plan. We're already peaked and walking them through that process. Show day, there is no major manipulations. Literally giving them almost not an hour by hour, but like every few hours, they know exactly what they need to be doing in the morning. They know they need to do like 3 hours from that, 3 hours from that, what they need to do pre-stage. They've got their pump up. They've got that checklist that Mike mentioned. I have that in their peak week plan. You've got your pump up bands. You've got your kind of pre-stage salt, all of this. There's like almost no stone left unturned as I'm for me. And similar to posing, we talked about it. They've already been posing, practicing their posing. They've built up to this. They've got that endurance capability. So they're just full of confidence. And then it's building that confidence within them. And one final thing I will say that I did with both Kieran and Jake was before they stood on stage was I just left them a voice note and said over on WhatsApp, I was just like, hey, just so you're aware, we have this plan, but be ready for it not to go exactly to plan. Show days, they might have timelines, they might have structure, but very often it doesn't quite go to plan. And just be comfortable with that discomfort and know you're in the same boat as everyone else. And that can give you confidence. And know that there's, as long as you meet your meals, you stay hydrated, you do what's on the plan, you do your bit of a pump up, you're going to look amazing on stage because you're already peaked and you look fantastic now. So it's just that, and I already say, like, I'm proud of you, like, no matter the outcome, all of that spiel, which you'll be used to, Mike. So anyway, that's how I do it personally, is like the plan, make sure they're fucking on point. Again, peak week, they know exactly what to do and execute. And then on show day, there are no doubts, concerns. They're just, hey, let's step on stage and as if it's a workout like any other day.
No, nice.
Big ramble.
No, not at all. I think you nailed it. And it's just like, hey, you take away all the thinking so that all they have to do is just execute and enjoy the moment.
That's the only other thing is I don't want to take away all the thinking, is I try and develop with my athletes a sense, and I did this with you, Mike, where I ask you questions like, how easy is it to get a pump? Do you feel as hard as ever? Because sometimes it happened to me actually this morning with Kieran. He's in a completely different environment. And so the photos he sent across to me, the lighting was very different. In some shots, he looked very hard. In others, I was like, I can't see what's going on here at all. On his quads, I couldn't see any separation. And I was just like, dude, can you help me navigate this? And so I just asked him some questions to get an idea of like how hard he is. And he was like, dude, I'm as sharp as ever. There is no like spilling, anything like that. And having that ability to have that dynamic communication and educating the athlete to be able to help you make those calls is invaluable. Similar to like anything you do in the gym as well, you know, getting them able to assess their own SFRs, for example.
Yeah, great point. I think, again, separates, I think, you know, good or average coaches from great coaches is that the great coach is interested in developing the person, maybe even eventually making ourselves redundant because we're allowing the athlete and the client to, like you said, think for themselves. Yeah, great point.
Cool. Next question.
Yeah. So
I just spoke a load.
Diana Corcutt, she says that when food gets too high, especially carbs, are there any tips to ease digestion? Maybe supplements?
So I have butted my head with this scenario, and I'm going to kind of talk through the question the way it was worded. I know when someone says too high, it's like, what do you mean too high? I'm assuming this is because of the question. It's just a case of it's not too high. It's like appropriate calorie wise. It's just too high in terms of their ability to digest it. They feel a bit uncomfortable with it. So this is something I butted heads with. Many of you will know during gaining phases is I start not feeling good, basically. And one of the areas where I know goes poorly is my digestion. And I know that because I frequently visit the toilet for a number two, and way more frequently than I would like. And I think it's my body's way of just kind of expending calories, and like it's basically being really inefficient about digesting all of those calories. I was made to be skinny and slim, basically, I think, whereas a lot of people aren't that way. But so in terms of tips to ease digestion, typically fiber intake wants to be within a range. You can have too little, you can have too much. 14 grams per 1,000 calories is like the general rule of thumb that I go by. I don't know, can't reference exactly where that's from, but the 14 calories per 1,000 calories works pretty damn well for a lot of individuals. So going in and around that's a wise move. If you're way less or way more than that, probably not great. Then, so fiber's one thing. Making sure you're hydrated is important just for things to digest well, probably not an issue. Then chewing your food plenty. So starting with just bare basics. If you're gulping food down, that's not going to help. Really make sure to properly chew your food. And on that same ilk of fiber and chewing food, you want to make food easier to digest. So that might be more liquid foods. It might be just more low fiber, easier to digest foods like rice products in general. People tend to do really well with rice. And then it is looking at your diet as well and look at if there's any FODMAP foods, so any like highly fermentable foods that can lead to like gas and bloating, and that some people might not digest well. One that comes to mind is like onion, for example, can be like a no-no for some people, and just reducing those, if not eliminating them, and focusing on foods that digest very, very well. It doesn't sound like it's like a hunger thing or anything like that. I would say if you are like struggling because you're not hungry at all, going to more palatable foods, basically the opposite to what you do when you're dieting, like flip it on its head, is almost what you would do there. But that sounds like it's a non-issue. So those are some of the things I would do to ease digestion. And then maybe also looking at the size of your meals. Small and more frequent probably works better than like stuffing yourself. Like at the moment, I'm on 3 meals a day, but I freaking love having like 1,000 or so calorie meals. It works beautifully for me. I'm not bloated. I'm not stuffed. It's great. But I know 10 pounds down the line, that's going to have to be 4, 5, 6 meals to just make them so that when I eat, I'm not getting anywhere near bloated and they just kind of come in, come out. So kind of a more grazing approach is probably good there. And then with digestion, the only other thing I would say is some people are tempted to go to more calorie dense foods, which means typically higher fat, but fats slow digestion a lot. And generally, from my understanding, from talking to people like Gabrielle Fundero, and her PhD was like in gut health, essentially, to simplify things, like high fat diets tend to lead to worse digestion. So I wouldn't lean too heavily in that direction if that is somewhere you're looking to go, just from that understanding. But having a bit of a play around with like your carbs and fat and ratios of that might be helpful. Finally, just to cover the question on supplementation, I'm not aware of any supplements that really you want to worry about taking there. I'm going to laugh because I've done bull's bile once. I was advised to take bull bile in like capsule form, and I remember doing that to try and help my digestion. This was when I like was on the fit forums over a decade ago. But yeah, there's, from my understanding, not too much you can do with supplementation. And as ever, it's the final thing to come to, and maybe there's a lot of things I've covered there that you haven't tried. Mike, any thoughts?
I think just more generally, because I liked the point that you made about chewing your food, and I would say off the back of that as well, more holistically, that stress could play a big factor, because if you've got high lifestyle stress, it could probably affect your digestion. So I would really make sure that you're looking outside of food and what's going on from a lifestyle perspective and address that.
So well said. Yeah, the sleep part is huge. A lot of people, I think, who get diagnosed with IBS, it's very stress related. I actually have a client at the moment who I think has been diagnosed with IBS, and he's like, whenever he's stressed, it's literally just stress is what triggers it. So yeah, if they are really stressed, they might want to ease it. The only other thing to come to this is if you've tried all of that and it's all failing, a mini cut really freaking helps. To be honest with you, like that could, I remember when I was really, really struggling with it a few years ago, and I just started dieting and it all alleviated within like a week, basically. And I felt fantastic. So sometimes it's just, that's the answer, unfortunately. So yeah, I'll ask the next question, Mike.
Yeah, go for it.
So John Freelove has asked, is there such thing as a thrifty spendthrift metabolism, where someone who is light could have a similar total daily energy expenditure to as a heavier person?
So, to my understanding, I think there is research to support a thrifty, 350 metabolism or the metabolism types. Is it the dual intervention? No, that's not the dual intervention. That's something different. But there is evidence to support a thrifty metabolism, and so again, you could have someone who is light but has a similar total daily energy expenditure to a heavier person. I think that is definitely a thing for sure. But I haven't got anything else to add to that. Do you have, Steve?
Yeah, spendthrift and thrift are legit things, part of like genetic makeup. Easy example of this is often was used with me and Pascal, where we're similar body weights, similar step counts, similar like training in terms of like our resistance training, but I would need like 1,000 calories more than him for cutting, gaining, maintaining. So there's definitely people that lie on this like spectrum, even it's the same expenditures. And you can even go outside of this. I think, is he called Levine? I think Levine did quite a lot of work in this area, but I know James Krieger has talked about his research where there's like basically looks into why this is the case, and often it's due to NEAT, so non-energy activity thermogenesis, and just some people have like wildly high NEATs. I know, just as some examples, is when I get near that upper intervention point in terms of body fat and body weight, I'm hot permanently. So my just core body temperature, I guess not my core body temperature, because that's meant to, if you're too high there, then you're going to have problems. But my body temperature, not my core, was just elevated. I was hot all the time. I slept hot. I was boiling all the time, just burning energy. And then probably, I don't know it, but I was probably like tapping my foot, and like I was like be more likely to play with Ada and do lots of activities, things like this. Whereas if you have that more thrifty metabolism, you're not going to be doing those things. And so you could, on paper, look like you should have the same intake to get the same energy balance, but you just don't, which comes back to, again, textbook versus what happens in practice. So yeah, there's pros and cons to being either end of that spectrum, but hey.
And you've just got to work with the cards that you're given.
Yeah, work with what's in front of you. That's the point I kept coming back to, wasn't it?
Yep. So, our man Dr. Jared Rice has asked the question, forearms frequently take over and fatigue in the first set when training biceps. How does one minimize forearm involvement to focus on the biceps?
Interesting. Because it's very easy with forearms and pulling, because you just put on straps, but you don't have such a solution for biceps. And so, I have no like biomechanical thoughts and scenarios that I can kind of go to, and my thoughts immediately go to like just experimenting. So experimenting with rep ranges, experimenting with ranges of motion, experimenting with exercises, experimenting with grip position, so neutral versus supinated, that sort of thing, and see what you can do there. And then also cueing yourself to really like just drive with the elbow versus gripping hard with your hand. I don't know if you have any more thoughts than that. It's not something I've struggled with personally, so
Yeah, I think you mentioned the key thing, which is experimentation, and my head also went on that note to a lower load, higher reps, to try and see that you're not gripping as hard, and maybe again it's just fatiguing the bicep a little bit more. It could even be, again, a cue of not gripping as hard, because it might be that, hey, maybe you're just gripping super tightly and the forearm is getting very heavily activated. My thought also went to using wrist cuffs. So going on like a cable machine and using wrist cuffs. So again, you're not actively gripping. I don't like the idea of it, but again, if you feel that you're really heavily gripping and you just can't get around it, okay, put some cable cuffs on and just flex your elbows and just see if that helps. But I think ultimately it comes back to what you said, Steve, of experiment with different exercises and then just really zero in on that bicep and, try not to grip quite as tightly. And, I think with time, we talked, I think we mentioned this a little bit at the meetup as well. It's like sometimes just, you are flexing the elbow, and I know probably Jared isn't meaning this, but it's like there is no way physiologically the bicep is not working if you're flexing the elbow. And sure, maybe the forearms are taking a little bit away from it potentially, but it's still working. So you're still going to be getting some gains. It's not like it can't fatigue at all. So I think do take reassurance from that, and then just give it time and conscious intention of working around it with what we've said, and, it will get better.
Great points. The only additional points I would say is to double down on the higher rep ranges, because I think it's much easier to connect my muscle connection wise and concentrate on really isolating in that internal feel. I think if there's ever a place for my muscle connection internal feels, isolation movements just like this. Then the only other thought is he doing anything that's pre-fatiguing his forearms before coming into these movements? And if he is, moving this before that, so training biceps first, basically, so that you can even more so target the biceps. I imagine he's probably tried that, but I'm not sure.
Maybe. You never know. No, don't assume, Steve.
No, make an ass out of you and me.
Exactly.
So maybe the final question, as you know, let's see if we can get through all these questions.
Two more. Let's get these.
So
done.
Next question from Emmy is, what are your 3 favorite protein powder brands, flavors, and top 3 gym equipment brands? Pieces. Okay, let's just go brands, because I think pieces is down a bit of a rabbit hole, maybe. I can't even think of 3 pieces. I'd struggle with that, man.
This is a great question. I like this. And I'm going to assume from a protein powder brand perspective, it doesn't have to be UK brand. It can literally be anything. Okay. So I'm going to go with, I've got to mention it first. I think Ghost has got to be up there, because I really like the bits in it and the flavors are tip top. So Ghost is going to be up there. I would then probably put Perform, the protein from Perform. And then after that, I would probably go with something, and I'm not just saying this, it has just come to my mind, but I think PhD is pretty solid.
I'll slip you that $5 later.
Thanks.
Not that I don't have like any what's it called? I don't have a discount code or anything. I'm just doing a bit of work with them. But any flavors that come to mind?
That's what I've missed. So
just ones just that come to mind, I think. Otherwise, you'll end up overthinking it.
The Perform white chocolate hazelnut, or like the Bueno, that's like no-brainer. But then they also do like a white chocolate raspberry, I think, and that was pretty decent as well. So those would be my top 2. I've only tried the Oreo, the ones that we had in New York for Ghost. We only had the Oreo and the peanut butter, but the Oreo was pretty nice. But I'd like to try some of the others. But I just appreciated the bits and everything. It was great. So, but I haven't got any other. And I really like for PhD I think it's the vegan. It's like the cookies one. I really like that. It's just solid.
I've only had from PhD, salted caramel's really good. And I've had the plant one that they do there. And then Belgium chocolate also is pretty decent from there. But I'm not going to, I think to protect myself, I'm not going to talk about supplement brands for now. But I'll go down the gym equipment brands then. Yeah. So, and by the way, pretty much think very similar to you with protein powders. But with the top 3 gym equipment brands, so the ones that come to mind for me are Cybex comes like immediately to mind. Prime comes immediately to mind. And then maybe I'm thinking like Arsenal Strength, which is really bad because I've named 3 American, I think they're all American brands of gym equipment. Just seems like you Americans are way ahead of us, because when I think of British brands, I can actually only think of Watson. I don't know if maybe what are they called? Predator Strength? They seem to do some good equipment. I don't know if they're called Predator Strength or Primal, something like that.
Prime.
Not Prime, Primal or Predator, something along those lines. Someone will probably know. But they seem to do some really legit equipment that's like quite decently priced. So, and I've tried, they had some of that when I went to the PhD event and we were training in the gym there. They had lots of that equipment. And also when I trained with Milo and Pack, they had a lot of that brand. I'm going to look it up whilst you talk about your brands.
So I actually quite like Panata as well. I think they do some decent stuff. And so Panata is pretty good. I like what what's the one Mike Israetel has a lot of in his gym? I think that begins with a P as well.
Primal Performance is it, I think, for the UK
Primal
brand.
Performance.
Yeah.
I don't think I've tried any of that equipment. But yeah, sounds decent. But I liked Arsenal was good. Cybex, Panata is the only thing that I would add to that, I think. I don't think there's anything else I would add.
Are there any individual pieces you can think of that you really liked?
Oh, it's so hard.
I will say the Arsenal pendulum squat that I tried at Dragon's Lair was unreal. I've only tried it that one time, so I can't really say too much. But apparently, I think it's Primal Performance. Their pendulum squat apparently is pretty damn good. I actually think that's the one we used at Das Gym.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
From Cybex, I'm going to say Cybex Eagle Press. We've got that one in Yorkies. I really like that. And then I can't really think of any back pieces that have just been spot on. I really want to try a prime row and a prime pull down, like the plate loaded ones where you can bias the length and position. That would be really fun. But I can't really, nothing's immediately coming to mind with that.
You've reminded me of when we went to the hub in Boston, the training hub. I really liked the seated leg curl, but I can't remember what the brand was.
I was thinking the exact same thing, Mike. I was going to bring it up. That seated leg curl was unreal. Best seated leg curl I've ever used, for sure. I just wish I was in a better position to appreciate it. I can't remember what it's called either. I think I put it in a vlog, though, and I pointed it out, and maybe even an Instagram post. There might be someone listening that knows exactly what it is. Definitely comment it if you're on YouTube, because, yeah, I can't remember the name, but that was fantastic.
Epic. I've never seen a seated leg curl designed like that before. It was totally unique.
Basically just put you in a really stretched position from the get-go and super comfortable, and you could take it to the house, and it's just great.
So yeah, that's the main thing in my mind that just felt, yeah, that's the only thing that I would add.
So we'll get to one more question.
Yeah, we can finish off the last question from the last lot. So Maisie B23, she asks, is it important to progress on every set each session? Sometimes I only manage to progress my top sets.
Easy. No, it's not. You don't have to even progress anything to actually be providing a stimulus for hypertrophy. What we have to be doing is achieving proximity to failure. So you need to be training hard enough, basically 3 reps in reserve or less. You need to be using a heavy enough load. So really anything 30 rep max or less is going to be stimulative for hypertrophy. And you need to be doing enough of it. So you meet these thresholds for growth. So absolute intensity, relative intensity, and then volume. So long as you're meeting that, you're providing a stimulus for growth. And in fact, repeating performance week on week could even be a sign that you've adapted, because now you're under potentially higher levels of cumulative fatigue. So you're actually performing under higher levels of fatigue. So yeah, it's not important to progress in every session via load or reps. You want to aim for it, but it doesn't have to happen. So especially across the board for everything. I just actually did a reel today. I don't know when I'll put it out there, but I'm going to be talking about this in a bit more depth, but I'll let you go, Mike.
Yeah, I think all I would add to that, which we might have talked about previously, is that particularly as you're getting towards the end of a meso cycle, is that you're not always going to beat your previous performance. And if you're constantly beating your performance all the time and by a lot, that raises kind of red flags, or it raises the skeptical eyebrow, because it probably means that, did we, unless that person is a beginner, or everything is completely new for them from an exercise perspective, is like you shouldn't be progressing. And actually, if you're really, really struggling and sometimes you're just matching performance, good, that's probably normal. So I think just remember that as well.
Yeah, brilliantly said. Great additional context with saying, hey, we're talking about someone who's a bit more intermediate, training with the lift that they've had in their program for a while. Yeah, let's leave it there then, and we can get to the next
Nailed
questions
it.
next time. As always, guys, thank you so much for your questions. As we've mentioned before, they're really good questions, honestly. And I really enjoy these with you, Mike, and diving into them. And as ever, guys, we appreciate your support. If you could comment, I have no idea what they should comment this week, but if you could comment, maybe actually, good idea, comment your favorite protein powder and favorite gym equipment, whether that's a brand or a specific one. I'd be interested to know. And obviously, subscribe, like, comment, share, all that good stuff. We appreciate you. And make sure you're following Mike Revive Stronger and me Revive Stronger over on Instagram. That's where we're most present. And of course, remember our coaching and all that good stuff. And we'll catch you in the next one. Sales
Yeah.
spear all done.
Easy. Thank you so much, guys. Catch you soon.